Okay, today is what? Today is Thursday, and it's Ches Tishrei. It's the 8th day of the month of Tishrei. Tomorrow is Erev Yom Kippur. We're not going to be learning. This is really our last opportunity before Yom Kippur. And of course, we can't argue with a phone ring like that, huh? One of the kids has a ringer. You hear the phone ring? You heard somebody's phone ring? It says, it's Moida Ani Lefanecha. You hear the Rebbe saying Moida Ani and then Shema Yisrael. So mit mikveh. Moida Ani Lefanecha, Shema Yisrael. Anyway, it should be bigger, I made it. But okay. So, it's our last opportunity before Yom Kippur, and when the Rebbe calls, the Rebbe used to refer to Yom Kippur, refers to Yom Kippur as Yom HaKodeš, the Heilige Ketov. It's the Rambam's lashon is it's Keis Slicha Mechila. It's the conclusion, it's the end of all forgiveness and all atonement, which means that TESHUVA, as Chassidus teaches us, is not only about correcting our wrongs, but it's about connecting to Hashem. Which is why even by tzaddikim there's a concept of TESHUVA. And Keis Slicha Mechila means it's the pinnacle, it's the peak, it's the highest point of this idea of not just TESHUVA being the forgiveness of sin and the apologizing and the correcting, but the returning to the Eibishter. This is the theme of Yom Kippur. That's why the Rebbe always brings the Lashon HaGemara, Itzumei Shel Yom Mechaper. The day of Yom Kippur affects a kapara, an atonement, because this is not just the conventional kapara. For Avedas, this is about an idea of reconnecting, of establishing attachedness to the Eibishter. Years ago, we used to discuss, we learned siches on it and so forth, where the Rebbe says tomorrow is a Yom Tif. Tomorrow is a Yom Tif. Tonight is Lav Davka a Yom Tif, even though usually a day starts at night, but tomorrow is a Yom Tif. And one of the trademarks of tomorrow is that you're supposed to eat. Right? It says that if a person eats out of Yom Kippur, it's as if you fasted 2 days. And the Rebbe's father, Rabbi Leivik, used to eat Erev Yom Kippur with both hands. A whole year he would only eat with one hand, and Erev Yom Kippur he ate with both hands. It's like an inyan essen, Morgen Estman. So the Rebbe in his siches, Kedarke B'Kodesh, the Rebbe has a unique approach to everything. Says, what's the significance of the eating of before Yom Kippur? And I'm paraphrasing. In other words, the following is my own words, but it's an idea. I couldn't make this up if I wanted to. I'm just not smart enough. We know that in Yiddishkeit there's always Ratzi V'Shuv. Everything in Yiddishkeit entails an energy of running towards the Eibishter and then bringing that energy into the world. And in this world meaning as opposed to El Matchia, El Mabah, there must be this dynamism. There must be these two tnuas, this running back and forth. Like the Lashon HaMishnah, Bal Kocha Chatachaya, Bal Kocha Tameis. You're forced to live and you're forced to not live. And that means to say, forced to live means Hashem wants to be in Gan Eden. You're forced to not live because you want to make a deal, you want to make a home for Hashem in this world. But you can't have one. What gives energy to your Yiddishkeit in this world? You desire to be in Gan Eden. And what gives meaning to the inyan of Gan Eden? It's the fact that you're putting aside your ruchniistic interest in order to be able to serve the Eibishter. So therefore, a person can't pick, I'm only going to be engaged in making the world a home for Hashem, or I'm only going to be engaged in trying to get as close to the Eibishter as possible, because they feed off one another. If a person is only involved in making the world a home for Hashem, he may begin to make it a home for his nefesh habahamis. If a person is only engaged in connecting to Hashem and separating from this world, that's called tayu, it's called chaos, it's not the purpose. So life is designed to entail constant ratzi v'shuv, back and forth. And Elam Atchiyah and Tchiyas HaMeisim, there's not going to be that, for reasons we're not going to get into at the moment. But life consists of running back and forth. And it's true in every area of life. In the course of a day, the time that we daven and learn is our ratzur, is our running to the Eibishter, and our involvement in material things, this is our shuv. In the course of a week, it would be the weekdays and Shabbos. In the course of a year, it would be the Yom Tevim seasons, the holiday seasons, Tishrei and Nisan, versus the rest of the year and so forth. Yom Kippur is called Shabbos Shabbosei. That's what it's called. The Shabbos of Shabbos. And just to give you contrast, Shabbos is Rotzu. Shabbos is running to Hashem. It's called Tainug, going up. Yom Tif is bringing Hashem into this world. That's the idea of Simcha, bringing down. And the corollary for Shabbos and Yom Tif is Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. Yom Kippur is like Shabbos, but it's more of a Shabbos than Shabbos itself. You're running away from this world. And Rosh Hashanah is like Yom Tif. It's that they're bringing the Eibush down into this world. That's what the Gemara says. Rashi says in Chumash, they would blow trumpets in the Beis HaMikdash. So the Pashtas of Yom Simchaschem means Rosh Hashanah. That on the day of Simcha and on Yom Tif and on Ish Chodesh they blew the Chatzetzes. But Yom Simchaschem b'Pashtas means Rosh Hashanah. Even Rosh Hashanah is a Yom Adin, and you know the halacha is Rosh Hashanah you're not mechuyev to wash and eat a meal. One of my children forgot to say Yalav Yav in Rosh Hashanah, benching. You don't have to bench over. In Sukkot, in benching, if you didn't say Yalav Yav, you have to bench again, because Rosh Hashanah you're not mechuyev to wash, because it's considered a Yom Adin, a day of judgment. But still, it's called a Yom Simcha. So Yom Kippur is the highest day of the year. It's the pinnacle, it's the highest moment of the year. As you all know, the expression that the Rebbe always brings, it's the mergings of Olam, Shana, Nefesh. The highest point in space is the Bekedesh HaKadosh. The highest point in time is Yom Kippurim. And the highest point in Yidden, in the Neshamas Yisrael, is the Kohen Gadol. And they all converge. The highest person and the highest time meet in the highest place, in the Holy of Holies. So Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the year. The problem with Yom Kippur, however, is that its direction is up. So where do you have in Yom Kippur bringing godliness back down into the world? This is very simple. This is the eating you do out of Yom Kippur. The eating of Erev Yom Kippur is considered like fasting because it grounds Yom Kippur. This is the eating of Erev Yom Kippur. Even before you fasted Yom Kippur, the eating of Erev Yom Kippur affects that the Yom Kippur should be an experience that doesn't... The Hebrew words would be, it's not histalkus, running away from this world, but it's aliyah, it's ascending to a higher level, but in a constructive way, where after the aliyah, after the rotzah, there's an in from shuv. So the eating out of Yom Kippur is the shuv, is the bringing into this world of the energy of Yom Kippurim. Now, if you've learned Chassidus even a little bit, you know that there is a theological discussion, a theological discourse about which is more important. Ultimately, what is it about? Going closer to the Eibishter or bringing the Eibishter into this world? Ultimately, what is it about? Is it about going closer to the Eibishter or is it bringing the Eibishter into this world? And Chassidus, without a question, without a doubt, holds that the priority is bringing the Eibishter down, not us going to the Eibishter, bring the Eibishter. In other words, from the perspective of Chabad Chassidus, the integrity of Yom Kippur is the Erev Yom Kippur. Erev Yom Kippur's eating affects that the Yom Kippur shouldn't be an escape, it should be an ascent with the intent of re-descent, of bringing the Eibishter into this world. So tomorrow's a Yom Tif. It's a Yom Tif associated with food. There are people who walk around the whole day with sucking candies or whatever it is, because it's a Inyan from Essen, Magna from Essen. Tomorrow you got to eat, and if you eat tomorrow, the halacha is like as if you fasted 2 days, and the Chassidus of this eating is that it's bringing the Eibishter down into this world. So we should have a successful Erev Yom Kippur and a successful Yom Kippur. Erev Yom Kippur is one of those moments where we think about family. You know that? You think about family. The Rebbe has a diary which he kept, which has now been which has now been published. And in the diary you have different ideas that the previous Rebbe shared with the Rebbe, and some of them were never public. Most of them the Rebbe himself shared. The Rebbe once said about himself, the Rebbe der Schwer hat mir Rebbe gesagt, hat gewusst, mit der Tag früher, der Tag später, es wird herausplatzen. The Rebbe said that if my father told me something he knew a day earlier or a day later, it's going to platz out. Everyone's going to know. The Rebbe says, I don't keep secrets. But still, in the Rebbe's Rishimis, there are things which, at least from what I know, the Rebbe was not mefarsim. And one of those things is at the time, immediately before Yom Kippur, is a Zeit for Mishpacha. It's a time for family. And the Rabbeim, of course, the whole Klal Yisrael was their Mishpacha. Still, in the hour or so before Yom Kippur, in other words, after Mincha, Erev Yom Kippur, and the Sudas Mafsekes, they would negotiate with all this sensitivity and thoughtfulness, but at the same time with firmness, that nobody should be in the house except for family members. Not even a shamish, and not even a gabayah, not even a janitor, not even a dishwasher. Everybody was helped sensitively to know that now they don't belong here. And the time, the shtikl tkuf before Yom Kippur, the Rebbe was alone with his immediate family, with his children and his grandchildren. It's a time for giving brachas. So the Eibishter Zalman mentioned that we should have a family, and we should have many children and grandchildren and great grandchildren, and we have a lot of energy to take it all in, and we should have nachas, jüdische, chassidische, gesunde, freiliche nachas von allem. Und wir sollen sein, sich mit den Reben herausgehen von den bitteren Golles.
So is tomorrow a day of TESHUVA, like these days of the days of TESHUVA, or no, it's a Yom Tov, it's a whole different...
There's no conflict in Yiddishkeit between TESHUVA and a Yom Tov. Rosh Hashanah is the day of TESHUVA too, and it's a Yom Tov. Yom Kippur is the day of TESHUVA, and we say, Shechayanu v'kimonu v'kiyonu l'zman hazeh. Think about it. The Eibush is judging you. What are you saying Shechayanu for? Because it's a Yom Tov. Because it's a Yom Tov also. So the Eibush to help him. Now, I am being held to my word by people who pay attention, that we had discussed in the beginning of the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, the Hayom Yom of the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, and I actually intended, I forgot, that's the honest truth, simple truth, to read with us the Hayom Yoms. So we're going to do now a series of Hayom Yoms. I handed these copies to you. These copies are there for decorations, and if miracles will happen, maybe we'll actually get to them. But I want to read with you the Hayom Yoms of the Aseret Yemei Tshuva. I promised you, and then I neglected my promise. So we're going to be doing Hayom Yom beginning with Gimel Tisha. If you have Achitas and Hayom Yom, you can follow me inside. Otherwise, like I always tell you, I'm not going to make it up because I couldn't if I wanted to. I have to read what's written here. Otherwise, you're going to know immediately that Chakachainik. So we're going to read the Hayom Yom, and we're going to talk about this week, this sequence, these 6 Hayom Yoms, which are so beautiful and so warm. The first one is Gimel Tishrei, which is Shabbos Tshuva, just like this year in Tafshin Daled, when the Rebbe made Hayom Yom, it was the same Kvias as this year that the Rosh Hashanah was Thursday. So it says, "B'Yechidus Tzemach Tzedek et v'Rabbeinu Azok." The Rebbe the Tzemach Tzedek was in Yechidus by his grandfather, the Alter Rebbe, in Beis Teitzei, Monday of Pashas Teitzei. B'Shishi B'Yel Tovkuf Samach Dal, the 6th day of Elul of the year 1804. Sipur leRabbeinu. So the Alter Rebbe told his grandson, the Tzemach Tzedek, the following episode: that Shabbos Pashas Tovei Tovkuf Chavches, Shabbos Pashas Tovei in the year 1768. Omar Meri V'Rabi Avamagid Mezitch Teira. My Rebbe, the Mezitch Magid, said a Teira. V'as Chalosa, that starts with the pasuk V'Shavta Ad Avaya Lekecha, that you will return Ad Hashem Lekecha. This is a pasuk in Chumash, in Pashas Nitzavim, but it's very reminiscent of the Nusach from the Haftarah of last Shabbos. Shuva Yisrael Ad Avaya Lekecha. That's not in Chumash. That's in several places in Tanakh. But the Rebbe, the Magid, quoted the pasuk from Pashas Nitzavim. Albeit, and he explained what is the meaning return Ad Hashem Lekecha. When a person does tshuva, it must be Ad Asher Avaya, that the name of the Eibush Avaya, which is above the world, Lekecha should be personalized. Hashem, let me use technical terms. The God of miracles should be my personal God, should be my regular God. The God of miracles makes appearances on unusual occasions. Otherwise, if he made appearances all the time, we would call miracles natural, because nature simply means recurring, predictable phenomena. So a miracle is unusual. So Avaya means the God of miracles should be our personal God. That's a very inexact but tangible translation of those words. Okay. That Havaya, the God of miracles, should be, my nature should be a miraculous one. Ayit should be malumad b'nisim. Miracles should be his real life. And then he continued and he said, Bereishis bara lekim, that when the Eibush created the world, he created the world with Shem lekim, which is from Teva. And Tshuva means that our nature should be the onset of miracles, the advent of miracles. Kol HaChavraya Kadisha, or the whole holy society, the Talmidim of the Holy Magid, Hayu B'Seider is Gedela Me'atera. He was very moved, very aroused by this Teira. When the Mezitch Magid said Teira, his Talmidim used to push it. Arezgin from the Kalim. They would go out of their minds. It says that when the Mezitch Magid finished the Teira, there were still 2 people paying attention. The whole rest of them, some would chalish and some would scream, and the Seiderus that they had when the Mezitch Magid said Teira was extraordinary. Some of them, before the Magid even started to speak, the Magid walked with crutches. So they were hearing coming, the Baditcheva, he heard the Magid walking, and he would start screaming, they would tie him and gag him and carry him out as if from Valbozai. I would be with the Mezitch Magid's Teira, I would have absolutely no trouble. You understand why? Talmidei Magid were tzaddikim gemurim. They weren't tzaddikim. They were perfect tzaddikim. And they were magish getlichkeit. They were magish in sof. And when the Maggid say Teire, the story goes, they saw the fire coming from his mouth, as they would say in Nusach from Poland. And therefore the Heilige Maggid. So the Maggid said this short little Teire, nice philosophy, they were Beiseder as Gedelim. But now comes the point. Harav Tzadik, Reb Shula Mezusha Mehanep Al Omer, the Heilige Rebbe Reb Zusha, who the Alter Rebbe said, ich hab zwei Yedidei Nefesh. I have two people who I love till my very core. Zusha Hanepola and Lei Bakayim. That's what the Alter Rebbe said. My two dearest friends that have me in the Etzem HaNefesh, Reb Zusha Hanepola and Lei Bakayim. When the Alter Rebbe wrote the Tanya, they wrote the Haskamas. Those are the two Haskamas in Tanya, and they're buried near one another. They're buried next to each other in Hanepola. In Hanepola, I've never been to Hanepola, but I'm sure the roving travelers have been everywhere. Join Lubavitch, see the world. In Hanepola, you have the Maggid, and the Malach, his son. You have like 6 or 7 tzaddikim, all buried one next to another. And amongst them is Ebzusha. The Mezritcher Maggid told Rebbe Ebzusha before he passed away, Du wirst sein ständig mit mir. You'll always be next to me. And they're buried near each other. The Mezritcher Maggid passed away in Hanepola. Kochafili, he lived in Mezritch, and in Ravna he passed away. His Menachosek covered is in Hanepola. And around him there's a whole group of his Talmidim, amongst them Reb Leib Akain and Reb Zusha Hanepola. Anyway, Reb Zusha Hanepola said, he can't do tshuva on such a high level. That miracles should become his nature, he wasn't shaychus to it, because he didn't know that miracles were miracles. He thought they were nature. He's going to parcel tshuva up. He's going to split it up into smaller pieces. He should be able to chew it. And he said, Ki tshuva Rashi Tevis, because the tshuva is Rashi Tevis for 5 words. The taf means Tomim Tia Im Havaya Lekecha, that one must be whole and simple and serious in their relationship with the Eibishter. Shin Shevi Yisei Hashem Lenegdi, I place the Eibishter opposite me, Tomid all the time. Vav, you must love your fellow as you love yourself. Beis, b'chol drochecha de'eyu, in all of your ways you should know the Eibishter. And hey, hatznei aleches im havaya lekecha, a person has to be tznius with the Eibishter. The Heilige Reb Zusha said, what's tshuva? It's 5 themes that are indicated in the 5 letters, Tov, Shin, Vav, Beis, Hey. Now, the constant in all of this is there's not a single mention of sin. Right? Which one of them means sin? It's all about being a better yid, which is the Chassidus of tshuva. There is the halacha of tshuva, and chas v'sholom, anybody should think that Chassidus is taking away from the halacha of tshuva. Chassidus is adding to the halacha of tshuva. What is the halacha of tshuva? Poshet api nigle. It's a chiyuv, it's a din, the whole siman after Rebbe Shachar Aruch. A vidu, a person has to confess. And the din of vidu, you have to say it b'dibur. And if you remember, some of us, fortunately or unfortunately, people don't remember what we did wrong. But if you remember a particular Aveda, you have to say specifically what you did wrong. But nobody is allowed to hear except for Atzmas Ein Baruch Hu. Only the Eibishter himself is here, that Yid's Vida. We don't confess to other people, only to the Eibishter. And then, of course, along with the confession comes Aziva Zachet, a resolution not to sin anymore. That's basic tshuva. Beyond that, beyond the confession and the resolution not to sin anymore, there's also the cleansing of the Aveda, which involves charata, regret and feeling bad and so forth. And then beyond that, there's tshuva lashon shoiv, not tshuva, I'm correcting my wrong, I'm coming closer to the Eibishter. And in this tshuva that the Mezritcher Maggid mentions, and then in the tshuva which the Zusha Hanepola broke down, there's no mention of sin at all. It's simply about being a better yid. Tshuva means to return to Yiddishkeit, to return to the Eibishter. The fact that I've been in Yiddishkeit all my life is nice, but now I'm in Yiddishkeit, in the Yiddishkeit which I'm engaged with all my life, I am returning in a deeper way, in a stronger way, in a wholesome way, in a more wholesome way to Atzmas Ein Baruch Hu. And these are the 5 letters of the word tshuva. Now, when the Rebbe Rashab repeated this to me, says the Friedrich Rebbe, see him, he finished. Tevis tshuva teruva mechamesh eisius. The word tshuva constitutes 5 letters. I shall call us each letter hu derech ve'efen ba'aved tshuva. It's a different path, a different form of tshuva, of returning to the Eibishter. And the Rebbe Rashab proceeded to explain to me, the Friedrich Rebbe, the Rebbe says, each one of these particular ways in detail. And the time that you do tshuva is when you daven. And davening doesn't mean when you're reading Siddur. Davening doesn't even mean when you're studying Siddur. Davening means when you're connecting to Atmas Himself. Davening, tefillah, Chassidus says, right? Again, let's do the standard. The Nigla definition of tefillah is Bakoshas Tzrochav, asking Hashem for your needs. The Pnimius Tekinin of tefillah, which is mentioned in Shas and in Halacha, is Avodah Shabalev. It's the labor of the heart. And Chassidus says that the word tefillah means teufel, to connect. That's what the word tefillah denotes. The word means time of tefillah is a time of connecting to the Eibishter. In connecting to the Eibishter, we can focus on different forms or different details in the connectedness, and this is connection to the Eibishter. So, in other words, if you will, to be simplistic and broad, tefillah and tshuva have a common theme. They're not the same. But the constant is that when I'm doing tshuva, I'm not just correcting my wrongs, I'm renewing my connection to the Eibishter. Davening is to consciously focus that connection and to experience it. So the Rebbe says, but while we daven, we're doing tshuva. We're consciously making these, so each letter of the word tshuva is a different type of attachedness to the Eibishter.
Was the Rebbe Rashab saying that this specifically Rebbe Susha's aspect of tshuva, that also happens in davening, or Bechlal in general, tshuva is done?
I would say that Bechlal in general, all good spiritual things happen when we're thinking about the Eibishter.
Because it sounds like Rebbe Susha's, it's very practical.
Right, but you have to understand, the last 3 lines are not from Rebbe Zusha. The last 3 lines are from the Rebbe. The Rebbe Rashab is commenting. That's right. This is the Rebbe Rashab's interpretation of Rebbe Zusha's words. Okay, now let's get to it. Okay, I promised you we got to keep the halten word. Meitis Vasechat Tishmer Vasis. Kitzer Bir Amor Beifan Alf. There's 5 tshuvas. Taf Shin Vav Beis Hey. Taf is Tomim Tia Im Avaya Lekecha. That when it comes to the Eibishter, we have to be Tomim. What does Tomim mean? The Fidikim says in Asicha 3 translations: Ernst, Ganz, and Tmimistic. Serious, whole. Whole means sophisticated. You'll pardon my candor. Full of Torah, full of knowledge, not ignorant. And sincere. Sincere means unquestioning and undoubting my relationship with the Eibishter. That's what the word Tamim means. Tamim tiya im avaya lekecha. There's this tshuva of tmimus. Avedas tshuva haba, when a yid returns to the Eibishter through focusing or through establishing within him or herself idea tmimus, through sincerity and simplicity and seriousness. Says the Rebbe, kama bechinos u'madreges b'inyan tmimus. In the notion of being serious and sincere, there's a lot of levels. I suppose we can all agree to that, right? Sincere is a relative term, right? What does sincere mean? Less cynical than my neighbor. That's what sincere means. Somebody once told me, what's the definition of a fanatic? Anybody who's more religious than myself. What's the definition of a cow? Of an irresponsible Jew? Anybody who's less religious than me. That's all. Very simple. I'm perfect. So, Tamim means to be serious, sincere, and wholesome in our connection to Hashem. Wholesome means that we have no issues when it comes to Yiddishkeit. Says the Rebbe, there's Kama, Bachin, Madreges, Binyan Atmimus, there's various levels in this. Ubeyachas al HaTshuva, and when you're dealing with Tshuva, Ha'oila al-Kulana, the real issue of sincerity, Hitmimus Halev, is the sincereness, the sincerity of the heart. Says the Rebbe in Yiddish, Hanikra Ernstkeit, which is called seriousness. Like it says by Avraham Avinu, Hashem says, David the Melech says in Tilim, in Divrei Yamim, you found his heart ne'eman. What is the word ne'eman? Believing, trusting. Ne'eman means loyal. Avraham Avinu was loyal to the Meibishni, right? Says the Rebbe, what does this emunah mean? What does this tmima mean? And it's got seriousness. You should know serious is un-American. And Yeshayim that it's un-Western. Everything is an experience. Everything is fun. And everything is take it or leave it. Serious means serious means serious. That's a serious issue. Serious means that this is something that can't happen in different ways. It's not negotiable. It's important. So important that I'm completely engaged. So important that it's consuming to me. So important that my focus is singular. I mean, the only translation for the word serious is serious. And I suppose you could say that seriousness is an issue of of maturity. I suppose let's use this form. People get excited through many different things. You come to shul the night of Yom Kippur, you can give a good speech if you're a great public speaker and arouse anybody. What happens 26 hours later by Ne'ilah? Some people are still in the spirit of that speech, and some people forgot it already. They're hungry and they're tired and they're yawning and they don't like the chazan, and the snuff spilled and they got it on their pants, and there's all kinds of trouble. The criteria is those whose tshuva, whose Yom Kippur is more is more serious and more whole. They sustain it for the whole duration of 20 days Yom Kippur. A seriousness, a maturity. This is serious. This is serious. This is not a game. This is serious. This is serious business. When I was in Russia, I'll tell you a story. When I was in Russia, we met a guy named Sam. I wonder where Sam is. Sam was the coolest cat you ever met. He wore only Western clothes, which you have to understand. I was in Russia in 1987. It's 88. It was a big deal. Western clothes, I mean, people used to kill for a pair of jeans. He walked around, mamish, ausgeputzt, clean shaven, the coolest guy in the world, and he was a moil. Du weißt, was das meint? You understand what that means? He was risking his life for Kaddish and Shemaim every day. And this was his shtick. You met Sam, he used Sam, he didn't use a Russian name, he was a moil. And he was the coolest guy, he was always making jokes. One of our chevra, I wasn't there, was by a bris that he made. And there was a minyan. Now, when we were there, already things were easier, but he didn't become a moil when we were there. He was a moil for several years earlier. And he was meiser nefesh. You know, jeans and t-shirts and rock and roll symbols. He was a moil. So one of the fellows told me he went to a bris where he was there. And he comes in and he's chit-chatting and he's laughing and so on and so forth. Right before the bris, he says, listen people, what we're doing is illegal. We could all go to jail for this. This is very serious. Every person here bears an enormous amount of responsibility. I thought it was a whole speech. And that was serious. That's serious. Every person understood that simply by being present, and of course the key issue is that chas v'shalom, somebody asks you questions, you don't know anybody and anything, that's serious. You know, and we met Sam a few times. Sam had no patience to sit by a sheet. He came 5 minutes and left, and she can't sit nothing else. But serious. Yiddishkeit is serious. The tshuva, what the Rebbe calls tmimus halev hanikr ernstkeit. Yiddishkeit is a serious thing. It's a ernste Sach. We have to think about it. That's tough. Now goes shin. Kitzur b'rei from base. Shin. Shivisi avaya lenegdi summit. I place the Eibishter in front of me all the time. Now, what's the simple pshat? In Shivisi avaya lenegdi summit, I put Hashem in my consciousness all the time. What did the Heilig Baal Shem Tov say about Shivisi Hashem lenegdi summit? Shivisi is miloshin shaveh. By me, toiv and ra is shava. Shivisi, by me, whatever a good thing happens or a bad thing happens, it's shava. It's always the same because avaya lenegdi, the Eibush is in front of me, Talmud all the time. This is called midas ha'ishtabus, which is a madreg of David HaMelech. That by me, toiv and ra is equal. Chayav mevarach al ra, chayav ad mevarach al ra, kashem mevarach al tev. It's a very high level of emunah and betachan the Eibush. That whatever happens, it's all shava. That's the chassidus of Shivisi. Again, the nigla of Shivisi is, as it says in the Pashta Taich, we place Hashem in front of us all the time, and the Baal Shem Tov said that therefore Shivisi, everything is equal. Let's see what the Rebbe says. Havaya, the Eibish's name Yudke Vavke made al Eshavos Ha'olam, means the Havaya Lashem Havi, the Creator. Right? Havaya has 3 translations. I've told you 100 times. The lowest one of Havaya means the Creator. V'eshavas and Avraham in the creation of all the various beings that exist within the world. Asher eshavos abriya kula, the creation of the whole creation, v'chayusa and its life u'b'derech ein arech. It's created from its creator in a quantum separate type way. There's no relativism, there's no erech, there's no closeness whatsoever between the Eibush and his world. Me'ayin leyesh, from a non-existence into an existence. Says the Rebbe, Vehi avedis ha-tshuva. This is doing tshuva. Haba yedei zeh, that happens through the idea. A person is focused on the following. That against him all the time is inyan havaya, the idea of creation or creator, of the world and everything that fills it. Shivisi havaya lenegdi means I look at the world and I don't see the world, I see the havaya. I see the Eibishter who's creating it. And this too is serious. It's not impossible, but you look at the world and you see, what am I seeing? I'm seeing that Eibishter's creation. The Alter Rebbe told the Tzemach Tzedek on Thursday before his Istalkus. Alter Rebbe passed away Motzei Shabbos. On Thursday before his Istalkus, he said to his grandson, to the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, he says, Mendel, was zestu? What do you see? So the Tzemach Tzedek said, Zeyder, zeh balken. He says, Zeyder, I see a beam. So the Alter Rebbe said to him, I don't see the beam. I see the energy of the Eibishter which is creating the beam, because it's known that by Tzaddikim Gemurim, 3 days before they pass away, they don't see Gashmias. And apparently the same exact story happened 3 days before the Histalkut of the Heilige Magid Mimezrich, that the Alter Rebbe also was told by his Rebbe, I don't see the material world anymore, I see godliness. Shivisa Aval means that even though I don't see it, I focus on it, I place it before me. You have in Tanya, Sof Perek Mem Beis, in the chapter 42, the Alter Rebbe says that one of the various different ways of achieving Yiras Hashem is to look at anything in the world and say, I am looking at God. When I look at a tree, I don't see the Eibishter. The camouflage itself is the Eibishter. The concealment is Alakus. Everything I look at, I'm looking at Getlachkeit. And I shouldn't see it as how we, as physical creations, construe it to be, but as Havaya. Shivisi Havaya. I see in creation Alakus. And this is also, it's real, as you said, but it's also Satifa Madreg. Beis. Vav. Kitzah B'Reisen Gimel. Vav. V'hafta Rechamech. K'mesh Omer Rabbeinu Azach, the Alter Rebbe says, that if a person wants to love the Eibishter, he has to love another human being. Like it says in another Hayom Yom, that the Alter Rebbe's children had an argument, which is more important, Avas Hashem or Avas Yisrael, loving the Eibishter or loving another Yid. So they came to the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe said that the ultimate sign of one who loves is Oyhev Masheha Ohuv Oyhev. And since it says, the Eibishter loves Jews, the greatest proof that you love the Eibishter as you love those whom the Eibishter loves. And the Alter Rebbe said, therefore, Avas Yisrael comes first, it comes before Avas Hashem. And by the way, I think you can explain it even in psychological terms. Having space for other people in your life. So psychologists would say it's a sign of health. A Yiddishkeit would say it's a sign of openness, it's a sign of humility. And this is the keli, when you love other people, you're able to love the Eibishter as well. Ubir, and the Rebbe Rashab explained it, but like it says in the Mishnah, that if the spirit of man is settled, is calm by this person, the Eibishter is calm by him as well. Tshuva that has to do with a good heart. In other words, fine character, midas tevis, which is also not an American minig. Midas tevis means to be nice to people. Sagen a good word, nicht kein strenger word. Say a nice word rather than a critical word. Greet people. Goodness, a good nature. And most people are not born with good natures. We have to create good natures. This is the tshuva of developing midas. And of course you know how much Rambam talks about midas tevis. Rambam says the first step in being a mensch, in being a chocham, and being a navi, is poshet bein adam lachavede, to have fine character, to get rid of the kinna and the sinna and the gaiva and the kas. All the midas are jealousy and hate and conceit and anger. The midas rise. When you mavada the person, that psychological healing is a step towards being intellectually sensitive and even being spiritually sensitive. And this is called leiv toiv, tshuva of a good heart. So the first tshuva was tshuva of seriousness, the second tshuva was tshuva of seeing God in the creation, and the third tshuva, the tshuva of good character. The fourth tshuva is base. In all your ways you have to know the Eibishter. This means that ha'adam, a human being, hasam libe v'daita, who applies his heart and his mind, al kol anasa imei u'misaviv, what's happening with him and around him. Everything that happens in our lives is godliness, and you see it vividly. Like the Mittel Rebbe said, that business people and professionals and people who work in ordinary vocations have a distinct advantage over people who sit and study Torah all day long. And that is when you're out in the world. You see godliness all the time. You see godliness in the smallest things, in the hashgacha pratis of our lives. And this is called, you should know God not just in the shul and in the shtibel and in the beis medrash and by the shir. You should know the God on the train and in the business and in your communications with people and so forth. Avedas HaTeshuva. This is the concept of tshuva hava, which happens mir'iyas hashgacha pratis, from sensitizing ourselves to identify and to celebrate the miracle of God's hand in nature. Not the miracle of miracles, but the miracle of God's hand in nature. And finally, today's Hayom Yom, Kitzur B'Yerefen HaHei, is Hey. Tshuva ends with a Hey. What's the Hey? Hatznei alachas im havaya lekecha. That a person should be secretive when it comes to the Eibishter, modest, unpretentious, unshowy. Zehirus, disregard, shleitiyah shum blita. When we do things, they shouldn't be protruding, pushing out. You know what happens when you push out? You push somebody else in. As the Chazal say, when it comes to Yiras Shemaim, you have to be smart. What's the intelligence in Yiras Hashem? Yid serves the Eibishter, and nobody knows. Do you know that the Marash once said, the Marash Yartzeit is in 4 days, 5 days hence. I'm mentioning him because I don't know if we're going to have a shir on his Gimel Tishrei. But the Marash once said, Ich hab gehört 23 in halbe Stunde mesles und afilu sie hat nicht gewusst. The Marash said, I toil 23.5 hours in a day, and even she didn't know. His Rebbetzin. And she wasn't just his wife, she was his partner, the Rebbetzin Divke, the Marash. Says the Rebbe Yadua, it's known, the Kamei Chasidim Arishenim, many of the other Chasidim, they concealed themselves. If they were revealed, it caused them a lot of pain. This is tshuva from tznius and modesty. And guess what? The Lubavitcher Rebbe, this is not the first item on the agenda. The first item on the agenda, like someone told me on the phone the other day, Zayat Tzibele, be an onion. If you can find a way of being an onion and still being modest, our avodah is gilui, is to be mashpia and to teach and to inspire. But if there's enough of you where there could be tznius and at the same time you could be mashpia and other people, the Rebbe was the most tzniistic person in the world. The Matla Chernobyl was once asked by one of his chassidim to show him a hidden tzaddik. So the Matla Chernobyl pointed at himself. So the chassid says, you're not a hidden tzaddik, you're a revealed tzaddik. So the Matla Chernobyl said, if I am what you think I am, it's a rachmanas on you and it's a rachmanas on me. So there's 5 tshuvas. The tshuva of seriousness, the tshuva of seeing Hashem in the Eibishter's world, the tshuva of a good character, the tshuva of seeing the hand of God not only in my Yiddishkeit but in my ordinary parochial life, and the tshuva of modesty and tznius. The Eibishter helps him on Heseder's tshuva amitis, tshuva yelaz mitech simcha rabba vatzuma. Okay, a good yard.